Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 120. Without any delay, start explanation. President, can I try? Tang Wulin bubbled with excitement. The concepts Shenhua had introduced were already mixing with what he understood about alloy forging, but he still needed to put it all to the test. His was itching to give them a try. Shenhua stared at Tang Wulin in astonishment. You want to try forging an alloy? Hushed whispers spread throughout the crowd. The clerk who had led Tang Wulin here was already pressing a hand to his face. This kid, he's got too much courage for his own good. He's just like a newborn calf in front of a tiger. Tang Wulin nodded, taking a step forward. President, may I? Shenhua smiled. If you think you can, then sure. The clerk ran over Tang Wulin, squatted down, and whispered, Kid, stop causing trouble. Just get out of here already, the president still has many matters to attend to. Shenhua chuckled. Just let him come. It wouldn't be right for us to trample over a child's passion for blacksmithing. I can tell from his eyes. His love for blacksmithing is real. Come here, child. Tang Wulin hadn't even glanced at the clerk. His eyes had been glued to Shenhua the entire time. He ran over to Shenhua's side and began speaking immediately. I need some heavy silver, star iron, and that universal catalyst you talked about, the sky moon powder. All right. Bring him what he asked for, Shenhua said, gesturing to some of his staff members. Tang Wulin surprised him. In addition to a deep-rooted passion for blacksmithing, his eyes showed unwavering confidence. Not even the tiniest bit of stage fright could be seen on his face. The blacksmiths in the audience shared in Shenhua's surprise, but to Shenhua, none of them had so much as a fraction of Tang Wulin's steadiness. Someone as excited as Tang Wulin currently was would usually at least be trembling, but Tang Wulin was steady as a rock. Shenhua also noticed that the boy's hands were larger than average, and his fingers moved in a steady patterns. This was a clear identifier of an experienced blacksmith, a sign of Tang Wulin's deep understanding of blacksmithing. Very few things could catch Shenhua's attention, but now his interest was piqued. He wanted to see just how high this child could reach. The Blacksmiths Association did not lack any metals whatsoever. Everything Tang Wulin asked for was quickly delivered to the forging area that had been set up in the hall of the first floor. Tang Wulin didn't stand on ceremony and immediately got to work. He walked over to the back of the forging table and opened it up. He put 2 pieces of metal into it, adjusted the calcining temperature, and turned the table on. Then he turned to Shenhua. President, could I trouble you for one more thing? Shenhua smiled warmly. What is it? May I borrow your hammers? The entire audience went into an uproar. Borrowing another blacksmith's hammers was rarely seen in the world of blacksmiths, not to mention the hammers of the world's only divine blacksmith. Shenhua was stunned as well. This kid is really interesting. Tang Wulin had no other choice. At this moment, he was completely broke. All of his worldly possessions confiscated by his teachers. Even his 1,000 refined tungsten hammers had been taken. Okay, Shenhua answered. He muttered a few words to himself, and a pair of hammers appeared in his hands in a flash of light. He handed them to Tang Wulin. The hammers glistened in the light, their shape completely adhering to orthodox methods. However, they were a rarely seen white. In addition to that, blue clouds danced across the surfaces of both hammers, giving them an aura of mystical beauty. They are spirit-refined hammers. Tang Wulin ascertained this with a single glance. The hammers were forged from spirit-refined cloud gold, an alloy composed of cloud copper and platinum crystal. Considering the fact that the hammers were crafted from a spirit-refined alloy, he could only imagine how much better they were compared to his own spirit-refined heavy silver hammers. I forged these hammers 15 years ago, and they've been with me ever since, Shenhua said. I used them all the way until I could soul refine. See how they feel in your hands. If you really manage to forge an alloy today, I'll give them to you as a gift. Although he didn't believe Tang Wulin would succeed, he still wanted to encourage him. He himself had set a new record when he became the youngest sixth-rank blacksmith in the world at 18 years of age. He knew from experience that such miracles were possible and wasn't as critical of Tang Wulin as the rest of the crowd. He could also sense that Tang Wulin had a solid foundation in blacksmithing. Yet he couldn't fathom why Tang Wulin didn't have his own forging hammers with him. A blacksmith's hammers were their life. A proper blacksmith would never be without them. This was one of the first things a blacksmith learned. "Thank you." Tang Wulin gripped the hammers, one in each hand, then closed his eyes. When the staff and blacksmiths of the fourth rank and higher saw how easily he held the hammers, astonishment crept onto their faces. Cloud gold was famous for its density. While the two hammers forged from cloud gold may have looked light, they were anything but. In fact, they weighed over 200 kilograms. Strength was critical for blacksmiths. Zhenhua lent these hammers to Tang Wulin as a test, yet Tang Wulin held them up with no difficulty at all. They were steady in his hands, as if he were merely holding a pair of ordinary hammers. "This kid is actually a blacksmith?" Everyone in the crowd could hardly believe their eyes. At that moment, Tang Wulin pressed the button on the side of the forging table, and a glowing piece of heavy silver rose to the table's surface. He tapped it lightly with the hammer in his left hand. A melodic note rang out, echoing throughout the hall. Tang Wulin froze after that tap, his brow furrowed. His ears twitched slightly as he listened to how the metal answered him. The faint smile on Zhenhua's face finally cracked as he witnessed this. The lower-level blacksmiths in the hall might not have understood what Tang Wulin was doing, but as a divine blacksmith, it was impossible for him to not. Tang Wulin was listening to the heavy silver, conversing with the metal and deepening his understanding of it. But, more importantly, he was listening to the voice of the hammer. Forging with hammers they had never touched before was a massive challenge for a blacksmith. Listening to a hammer's voice was one way for a blacksmith to get familiar with it. Only after understanding the character of a hammer could a blacksmith use it. Zhenhua had been testing Tang Wulin from the moment he handed the boy his hammers. The weight was merely the first part of the test. How Tang Wulin would use these hammers was the next, more important part. He's so young. He couldn't be older than 15 or 16. Even if he isn't able to forge an alloy yet, he may be a promising successor. Let's see just how talented he is. The cloud gold hammers were the best test. Zhenhua wanted to see if Tang Wulin could bring out their full potential. These hammers were blood-bonded to Zhenhua and contained a piece of himself in them. They possessed a special effect similar to the stacked hammers effect of Tang Wulin's heavy silver hammers. Tang Wulin's first strike was flawless. The resultant ringing made his eyes go wide with realization. Tremor! Golden light flashed in Tang Wulin's eyes, and he struck down with the left hammer once more. This time, it descended upon the metal like thunder. A boom tore through the hall when the hammer struck the glowing red piece of heavy silver, yet it did not rebound off the metal. The hammer remained firmly pressed to the heavy silver, and a moment later, a low hum began to fill the hall. This was the tremor effect of the cloud gold hammers. The hammers harnessed the power of the vibrations that came from hammering metal to assist their wielder. Tremor was a high-grade effect, just like stacked hammers. Tang Wulin kept the hammer pressed tightly to the heavy silver to bring out the tremor effect's full power. The crowd went silent. That strike was testament to Tang Wulin's strength. The fact that he could wield the cloud gold hammers and prevent them from rebounding off the metal showed that his arms were strong enough to handle the recoil. Furthermore, the fact that he was able to stabilize the hammer showed how firm his blacksmithing foundation was. Zhenhua nodded in approval, a genuine smile forming on his lips. This kid is remarkable. 3 seconds later, Tang Wulin lifted the hammer and struck again. A thunderous crash shook the room. A spray of powder burst from the heavy silver. This was proof of the tremor effect at work. It could vibrate impurities out of a metal. Although the result was simple, this wasn't something that just anybody could do. In order to bring out the full potential of this effect, a blacksmith needed to possess overwhelming strength, a firm foundation of soul power, immense spiritual power, and a deep understanding of the metal they were forging. If the blacksmith did not fulfill even one of these requirements, it would be impossible for them to use tremor effectively. In fact, the tremor effect could even become a disadvantage. And Tang Wulin's second strike used it to his advantage. A third strike followed, then a fourth, and then a fifth. 3 seconds separated each one. As he watched the boy in front of him forge away, Zhenhua's amicable smile gradually grew concerned. A trace of doubt flickered in his eyes. Tang Wulin continued hammering, and soon enough, his seventh strike landed. The heavy silver trembled, and in a flash of light, the impurities were separated. It was 100 refined. It only took him 7 strikes to 100 refine the heavy silver. Zhenhua straightened his back slightly, and the more knowledgeable blacksmiths in the audience gaped. As a divine blacksmith, Zhenhua could easily 100 refine a piece of metal with a single strike. A child in his teens had done it in 7. It was then that Tang Wulin finally moved his right hand. He pressed a button to reveal the star iron, which had just finished calcining, and struck down with his right hammer. The blow sent tremors through the star iron. He's dual forging. The clerk who led Tang Wulin here was already speechless. He couldn't have possibly imagined that a teenage boy like Tang Wulin could be so skilled. This child is actually dual forging. And he's dual forging 2 different metals at that. Even if he's just 100 refining them, that's a feat only a 3rd or 4th rank blacksmith would be capable of. Both of Tang Wulin's hammers crashed down, forging both the heavy silver and the star iron simultaneously. Every strike shook the hearts of the spectating blacksmiths. Blow after blow thundered throughout the hall, and Tang Wulin's world shrunk down to just him and the metals. He was itching to put what he just learned about alloy forging into practice. He wanted to test it out and deepen his understanding. The itch began at the back of his consciousness at first, but as he continued forging both metals, it grew in intensity until, finally, he felt as if he were about to explode. Everyone stared in shock as Tang Wulin hammered the metals with unbelievable might. Another droning hum, a fraction different in pitch, soon filled the hall to overlap with the first. 2 lights shot into the air, one a resplendent silver, and the other a coalescence of countless specks of starlight. The 2 combined, rising 6 feet into the air as a 2-colored beam. It illuminated the hall, a magnificent sight that bathed the onlookers in a bright glow for one moment and faded to nothing in the next. 2 hammers. 2 metals. And both metals were first-grade 1000 refined with spirit. It was plenty amazing for the light of 1000 refining to ascend 5 feet into the air, yet the child before everyone's eyes had simultaneously refined 2 metals and summoned light that reached 6 feet high. That was the sign of a fabled saint-grade 1000 refining, a feat that only saint blacksmiths should have been able to achieve. Tang Wulin didn't notice the reactions of the audience. In truth, this result was thanks to the cloud gold hammers he had borrowed. They were a spectacular pair of hammers that had accompanied Zhenhua for many years. They had taken in some of his strength, which bolstered the tremor effect. Tang Wulin had been absorbing some of Zhenhua's essence every time he swung the hammers. He was also in perfect condition. This combination of factors helped him to just barely succeed in a saint-grade 1000 refining. However, he was not done yet. 3 purple soul rings rose up from beneath Tang Wulin. Soul power coursed through his body and into the cloud gold hammers. A cloudy, misty aura immediately materialized around the hammers. A breath of life came from them, and they suddenly grew lighter. As a result, Tang Wulin was able to wield them even faster than before. The hammers moved in perfect sync, closing in on the pair of 1000 refined metals like lightning. They struck with a resounding boom, smashing the 2 metals together. The hardest part was over. From that point on, it would be smooth sailing. Every strike of the cloud gold hammers held tremendous power and smashed the 2 metals closer and closer together. Tang Wulin used each blow to pour both life force and soul power into the metals, washing them from the inside out. The beam of light that stemmed from the 2 metals began warp, and the separate colors started intermingling and fusing together. It was time to start forging the alloy. The entire crowd collectively gasped. Where did this kid come from? He's actually attempting to forge an alloy. Just how old is he? Not even the president could forge alloys at such a young age. It doesn't look like this is his first time doing this either. If it were up to the higher-ranked blacksmiths, they would have spirit-refined the metals then used both to forge an alloy. Yet Tang Wulin chose a different approach. He had jumped right to forging the alloy after thousands refining the metals. In the end, however, he ended up choosing this approach because of his weak soul power. He would deal with spirit refining the metals once they had actually been forged into alloys. This was all for the sake of his one-word battle armor after all. Heavy silver and star iron were needed to forge star silver, an alloy he needed to craft the rest of his one-word battle armor set in the future. To that end, 1,000 refined metal would be sufficient for the time being. He could think about spirit refining once he was more powerful and skilled. Besides, forging alloys was a walk in the park for him now. Tang Wulin didn't dare spirit refine the metals because the cloud gold hammers didn't belong to him. He feared that the finished product wouldn't be completely his if he did. He had actually considered spirit refining the alloy as well, but the chances of success weren't too high. Furthermore, his current priority was to learn Zhenhua's alloy forging technique. As Zhenhua watched Tang Wulin assault the metals like a raging tempest, he subconsciously stepped forward to get a better look at the metals on the table. The heavy silver and star iron gradually fused into one, their resplendent auras merging together as well. Tang Wulin maintained a steady forging tempo. His upper body never stopped moving, but his lower body remained an unshakable foundation. He didn't move a single inch from where he stood. Tang Wulin's 3 soul rings thrummed in the hall, giving off a gentle light that seemed to envelop him. He's a 3-ringed soul elder. And all of his rings are purple. No one dared ridicule Tang Wulin now. The gruff blacksmith who had voiced his doubts about Tang Wulin earlier was now staring at the scene before him with a blank expression. He was a 3rd-rank blacksmith in the middle of delving into the mysteries of 1,000 refining. Tang Wulin, on the other hand, popped out of nowhere and showed off his skill as a 4th-ranked blacksmith. I can't believe I was mocking him. All of Tang Wulin's focus was on the 2 metals. He stared at them with rapt attention, watching every reaction as they fused. As he hammered away, he brought forth the sky moon powder, sprinkling it over the metals in between strikes. The powder coated the heavy silver and the star iron as they slowly mixed together. The results of this turned out just as Zhenhua had said they would. The metals became tougher and harder to forge, but the chance of failure drastically decreased. That was when Tang Wulin began to forge faster. The hardest part about forging an alloy was preserving the spiritual nature of the component metals used. Blacksmiths couldn't let the spirit of the metals die, so they needed to use their spiritual power to protect the metals. Zhenhua's technique made this part of the process much easier. And all it required was sky moon powder. Tang Wulin could sense the profoundness of what was happening with the 2 metals. It didn't take long before they completely fused into one alloy. The barest hints of a star silver splendor could now be seen. But at that moment, Tang Wulin withdrew his soul rings. Zhenhua broke out into a cold sweat. Did his soul power run out? But then a golden soul ring appeared, and he sensed Tang Wulin's blood essence go wild. If this were any other alloy, Tang Wulin wouldn't have needed to bring out his golden soul ring. However, he was forging this piece of star silver for his own use. He needed to bind his flesh and blood to it by injecting it with his blood essence. Then, once it was made into a piece of his battle armor, it would be even more compatible with him. A golden aura enveloped the cloud gold hammers, and Tang Wulin hammered his blood essence into the emerging piece of star silver. Splitting booms shook the hall as he pounded away at the fusing metals. Every strike possessed tremendous weight and speed. The forging table trembled from the shock. The star silver gradually shrank under the weight of each blow. Tang Wulin struck down with both hammers at once. He let out a draconic roar as a pair of golden lights flowed through each of the cloud gold hammers and into the star silver. An illusory dragon soared out of the metal, spiraling up into the air. All the while the star silver twinkled bright with ample shine, its surface touched by specks of starlight in the shape of a dragon. That dragon was Tang Wulin's personal brand on the metal. Tang Wulin was beyond pleased with the results. He roared for a full minute before settling in silence. In his eyes burned inextinguishable flames. He had the instinctive impression that he had broken through a boundary as a blacksmith. His growth was tremendous and his alloy forging success rate would undoubtedly eclipse the one prior. He did it. He really did it. He forged a spirit alloy. Zhenhua stared with his brows furrowed. Thank you for lending me your hammers. I understand the technique now. Thank you for teaching me, Tang Wulin said respectfully to Zhenhua. The strong were no stranger to secrets, and blacksmiths were not excluded from this rule of life. A good forging technique could help a blacksmith dramatically improve their skills and bolster their success rate. Especially a technique as invaluable as the one Tang Wulin just learned. Yet, Zhenhua had imparted it for free. It was this action that solidified a previous notion within Tang Wulin's heart, that Zhenhua was a man worthy of respect and admiration. Zhenhua put on a stern expression. Whose disciple are you? How old are you? These questions startled Tang Wulin. It was only now that he realized he had revealed himself. He had forgotten all about hiding his talents amidst his excitement. As such, before all these blacksmiths and the sole living divine blacksmith, there was no use lying anymore. My teacher is Mu Chen. I'm 14 this year. The moment the words left his mouth, the entire hall went into an uproar. He's only 14? And he can forge alloys? Zhenhua's chest huffed as he listened, but a blank look crossed his face at the mere utter of Mu Chen's name. Where's your blacksmith's badge? What rank are you? Even as the president of the whole Blacksmiths Association, Zhenhua couldn't help but harbor some doubts regarding Tang Wulin's blacksmith rank. With his discerning eyes, he picked out an amazing fact: the harmony rate of the star silver Tang Wulin forged was over 95%. I'm in the middle of an exam right now, so all of my possessions were confiscated. I'm a 5th rank blacksmith. He's a 5th rank. Everyone had guessed it, but hearing it out loud still brought out a tumult of gasps. He's a 14-year-old 5th rank blacksmith. He broke the record. And Zhenhua's, at that. Zhenhua smiled. That damn Mu Chen. I can't believe he was able to hide you so well. That bastard. President, can I take this piece of star silver? I can pay for it by taking missions. Zhenhua frowned. No need for payment. It belongs to you in the first place. As promised, those hammers are yours now too. The cloud gold hammers that possessed the tremor effect were priceless treasures. Still, Tang Wulin shook his head, something else more important weighing heavily in his mind. I don't need them since I already have a pair of hammers, but thank you, President. Instead, could I trade them back for money? Trade for money? He wants to trade them for money? The clamoring crowd instantly went silent, shocked and frozen at the sight before them. The divine blacksmith was gifting his hammers to Tang Wulin, but he wanted to trade them in for money. They couldn't believe their eyes. Zhenhua couldn't maintain his poker face anymore. His jaw dropped, utterly dumbstruck. Is he just here to cause trouble? That's got to be it, right? Yeah. It has to be. That bastard Mu Chen must have sent him here to annoy me. He picked such a good time too. Just when I decided to give a public lecture? That bastard. Fine. In front of such a large crowd, there was nothing else he could do. He signaled to one of the nearby staff. Follow me, he said to Tang Wulin as he approached the elevator. Hushed whispers broke out behind Zhenhua, fanning around him like the petals of a flower, incoherent in their volume but clear in their overall sentiment all the same. Everyone in the hall had just witnessed the first appearance of this generation's greatest blacksmithing prodigy. Tang Wulin followed Zhenhua into the elevator. Did Mu Chen tell you to come here? Now that they were alone in the elevator, Zhenhua sought to confirm his suspicions. Once more did Tang Wulin shake his head, hanging it in embarrassment a moment later. Actually, I came here because I'm broke. The academy took all of our money to teach us how to be self-reliant and how to adapt to society. I need to earn some money with my own methods to complete my exam. A thought struck Zhenhua, bright and piercing like a lightning bolt. Shrek Academy? Tang Wulin jerked his head up in astonishment. How do you know? Junhua chuckled. No wonder Mu Chen resigned from the East Sea Blacksmiths Association to suffer in Shrek City. It was all for your sake. He sure knows how to keep a secret. I had always thought Little She was this generation's greatest blacksmithing prodigy, but you were hidden away all along. Tang Wulin scratched his head awkwardly. Teacher Mu, there was nothing I could do. This was all just a coincidence. He focused his attention back on Junhua. President, I still have my exam to finish. Can you give me the money for the cloud gold hammers now? I promise I'll come visit you again in the future when I have time. The elevator cruised to a stop, the doors sliding open to the highest floor of the building. You're so young yet all that goes through your head is money. You're just like your teacher. I can't do anything without money, Tang Wulin mumbled. If you're not going to give me any, then I'll just go do some missions. But since I don't have my badge right now, the staff won't let me take on any. Can't you bend the rules a little for me? Junhua let out a chuckle. Fine then, kid. I'll have someone bring over some money in a bit. Go accept some missions now, just don't let anyone see you. Right, I wanted to ask you this. Since you're Mu Chen's disciple, did you also join Shrek's Blacksmiths Association? Yes. I have a teacher there too. Are you talking about that old madman? Junhua asked. Tang Wulin nodded. Junhua's expression darkened. After a few moments of silence, he spoke up. What do you need to do for your exam? Tang Wulin, without withholding a single detail, honestly explained the exam's requirements. Well, Shrek Academy sure is strict. Well, I can help you find an opponent for Heavendo City. I can arrange transportation for you too. Tang Wulin beamed. Thank you, President. Junhua flashed a warm smile of his own. You know, Mu Chen and I were actually apprenticed to the same master. I'm his senior brother. You don't have to call me President. Just call me Uncle Master. Uncle Master? Never had Tang Wulin heard such a thing from Mu Chen before. Uncle Master. Tang Wulin didn't hesitate. It was a wonderful thing to have a divine blacksmith as his Uncle Master. Junhua nodded in approval. Take a rest here. I'll go arrange an opponent for you. Before he could do anything else, Tang Wulin spoke again. Uncle Master, I'm hungry. Tang Wulin had consumed a lot of blood essence during the alloy forging, and the one meal he chanced upon today was only meant for ordinary people. All right. I'll have someone bring you over to my personal dining hall. Junhua smiled gently. He felt the embers of approval spark brighter and hotter in his chest. This kid isn't the least bit nervous. Not bad. As the president of the Blacksmiths Association, his personal dining hall only served the best of the best. Blacksmithing was an exhausting job, and especially so for a divine blacksmith. There were few people on the continent who ate better than him. Moreover, unlike most people, he had plenty of money. As a divine blacksmith, each of his products were worth more than their weight in gold. His wealth rivaled that of a small nation. Because blacksmiths needed a lot of money in the early and middle stages of their career, advancing was difficult. However, once they broke through the boundary of the 6th rank, the profits came pouring in. At that point, blacksmithing was undoubtedly the most lucrative profession. Nevertheless, Junhua's personal dining hall was quite small, only about 20 square meters in area. A plain, round table sat at the center of the room, further contributing to the image of austerity. When the dishes arrived, Tang Wulin was moved to tears. The first dish was a 1,000-year land dragon's tendon. This was one of the spirit items Tang Wulin had needed to break one of his previous seals, yet Junhua treated it merely as food. To be fair, the piece of tendon was small. It had been stewed for a long time and was soft and sticky, a tantalizing aroma rising from it, ensnaring the senses with a single whiff. Indeed, one sniff and Tang Wulin's blood essence thrummed in excitement. He began to drool. The rice served with this tendon was the premium moonlight rice. It could only be found in extremely cold climates and took 3 years to grow and harvest. A small amount was produced each year. The grains of rice seemed to bend moonlight around it to produce a silvery aura and carried a refreshingly cold scent. When Tang Wulin took his first bite of this dish, the sweet flavor of the rice mixed with the warmth of the stewed tendon, blending together in a magical combination of textures and flavor. It was heaven for his taste buds. Amazing. That was the only thought that crossed Tang Wulin's mind as he gobbled down the rice and tendon. The plate of 1,000-year land dragon tendon disappeared in a flash, along with 6 bowls of moonlight rice. The chef, a wizened man in his 50s, had smiled happily as he watched Tang Wulin eat in the beginning, but by the end, his delight changed into astonishment. This kid really knows how to eat. Though his servings were a far cry from their usual abundance, the moonlight rice and dragon tendons were much more nutritious than ordinary food. A single grain of moonlight rice would be enough to satisfy an ordinary person for a day. Tang Wulin still craved for more after 6 bowls. Sensing Tang Wulin's blood essence growing stronger with each bite, the chef jokingly thought to himself that all of the food was being turned into blood essence. A while later, after soup was served and Tang Wulin finished his 7th bowl of rice, he looked up at the chef. "Uncle, is there any more?" The chef didn't know what kind of expression he should make. "You can even eat more than the president." "There's nothing left." Tang Wulin put down his bowl with a whimper. "You really still hungry?" "Yeah. My stomach is only a bit more than half full." "Well, I'll be fine." "But what is Uncle Master going to eat?" The chef flashed Tang Wulin a thumbs up, then stood up and walked back to the small kitchen in the back. "Wait a bit." Meanwhile, Zhenhua was busy pacing the floor in a different room as Tang Wulin had been stuffing his gut. "Mu Chen, I can't believe you," he shouted into his soul communicator the moment the call connected, his voice an octave higher than usual. On the other end of the line, Mu Chen felt his heartbeat quicken. "Is something wrong? What's going on?" Zhenhua sneered. "You have the nerve to ask me that? Are you telling me you didn't deliberately send your disciple here to stir up some trouble?" "Disciple?" Mu Chen's pitch rose as well. "Did you meet Wulin? Who else could I be talking about?" Sarcasm dripped from Zhenhua's words. The line went silent. "Say something. When did you pick up such an incredible kid?" Zhenhua asked. The calm expression he had shown Tang Wulin was but a facade. It had taken all of his willpower to hide the shock from his face. There was no way a divine blacksmith such as himself didn't understand the significance of a 14-year-old 5th-rank blacksmith. Tang Wulin had a sturdy foundation, good wits, and a godly talent for blacksmithing. All of this Zhenhua had discerned from Tang Wulin's handling of the cloud gold hammers. Tang Wulin was destined to become the next generation's divine blacksmith. As long as he grew steadily, this was inevitable. Of course, that meant he had to become a titled Doluo. However, it was much easier for blacksmiths to become titled Duluos than for combat-oriented soul masters. They could simply use some heavenly treasures to boost them up to that level. Although this would result in an unstable foundation, they would still become a titled Doluo and have the necessary soul power for their path to a divine blacksmith. Aware of these facts, Zhenhua wasn't worried about Tang Wulin's growth as a soul master. He was one of the 10 richest people on the continent. He had more than enough resources for the items necessary to nurture a prodigy like Tang Wulin. The sole issue so far had been finding one. "Don't even think about it." Mu Chen shouted back. "Mu Chen," Zhenhua said gently. Mu Chen's laugh was thick with sarcasm, voice coming out gruff from the other side of the line. "Don't bother. I already know all about your tricks." Zhenhua chuckled. "Weren't we once fellow apprentices?" "Yes, we were. But that has nothing to do with this." In fact, Mu Chen understood Zhenhua better than anyone else precisely because Zhenhua was his senior brother. Zhenhua ignored the frost practically spreading through his speakers. "Junior brother. Don't you remember how we were back in the old days? We were praised as the 2 greatest prodigies of the blacksmithing world. We've been through thick and thin together. Just tell me, didn't I take care of you as your senior brother?" But Mu Chen was an impenetrable fortress. "Anything else is fine, but not my disciple. Didn't I let you have my beloved Yuan Bao back then?" And now you have an adorable daughter thanks to that. What about me? I have no wife, and I never will. The only woman in my heart is Bao. Do you have any idea how much it pained me to make that decision? I don't really want a disciple. I want a son that can look after me as I age. Junhua cried, choking back sobs. Mu Chen went silent. Years ago, Junhua, Yuan Bao, and Mu Chen had been apprenticed to the same master together. Junhua was the eldest disciple, followed by Mu Chen and Yuan Bao in that order. Out of the trio, Yuan Bao was the only girl. She had a mischievous personality and, compared to the others, was a bit of a slacker in learning blacksmithing. Even so, she was the target of affection for her two senior brothers. As the three grew up together, so did their emotions for each other. But in the end, Junhua chose to dedicate his life to blacksmithing, and Yuan Bao ended up with Mu Chen. In a sense, Junhua truly had given her to Mu Chen. Blacksmithing had simply pulled ahead from the other important thing in his life, his beloved Yuan Bao. Still, Mu Chen felt guilty. He had no retort to Junhua. Eldest brother, are you crying? A gentle voice interjected through the communicator. A cold shiver traveled down Junhua's spine. Is that you, Bao? Eldest brother, how about I kick Mu Chen to the curb then run over to you, she said sweetly. No. It's fine. Junhua answered immediately. Junior sister, how could you say something like that? Mu Chen and I are brothers, I couldn't possibly. Then stop talking out of your ass. Don't call if you have nothing to say. Yuan Bao shouted. A moment later, the dial tone played. Junhua didn't know how to react to all this. On Mu Chen's side, he stared at his wife, stupefied. He had never seen his wife act so violently before. She was usually mild-tempered. Bao, are you feeling all right? Mu Chen rubbed her forehead. Yuan Bao took advantage of this and sat on his lap, throwing her arms around his neck in a tight embrace. All traces of her previous temper were wiped off the face of the earth. I'm fine. In fact, I'm great. My kindness is only meant for you though. Mu Chen looked at her curiously. What about eldest brother then? Yuan Bao snorted. I was just warning him not to use what happened back then to threaten you. I've already kept it a secret for so many years for his sake, but it looks like he doesn't care about saving some face. A blank look crossed Mu Chen's face. What do you mean? What secret? Yuan Bao snickered. Do you really think he fearlessly chose to devote himself to blacksmithing back then? You dummy. That's too naive. Eldest brother is really cunning. He had long since asked me to marry him by that time. You were so oblivious about it. Eldest brother is a good person, but he's too stubborn and ambitious. I couldn't love someone like that. I just wanted someone who I could have fun with. You might have been a bit dumb back then, but you were a lot more reliable than him. You only have me in your heart. If it had been him, then it would have been me and blacksmithing in his heart. And I'm sure blacksmithing would have still placed higher than me. Who would choose a guy like him? So I told him I liked you. After that, he went into seclusion. I didn't mention any of this before only because I wanted to spare him the embarrassment. Mu Chen was dumbstruck. At first, he couldn't believe what his wife was telling him, but as the seconds ticked by, the puzzle pieces started coming together. No wonder you chose me. You're definitely more suited for a laid-back lifestyle. You would never be able to devote your life to blacksmithing like Shenhua did. You broke contact from a lot of people when we moved to East Sea City too. Some people even think you died. Yuan Bao smiled. I like this sort of simple life. It's enough as long as I have you and little she. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.